In the world of international trade, policies often have unexpected results. Donald Trump's renewed push for tariffs is shaking global markets, but the landscape has changed. His targets are now powerful, rising economies. Instead of weakening rivals, these aggressive moves risk uniting the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and new members, against the US rather than isolating competitors. Trump's strategy could accelerate the creation of alternative economic systems, reducing global reliance on America. The BRICS bloc, now larger and more influential, may use this pressure to deepen cooperation and build parallel financial and trade networks. In trying to reassert dominance, the US could inadvertently speed up a global power shift, one that leaves it more isolated than ever. BRICS has transformed from a loose group of emerging markets into a strategic alliance with global reach. With new members like Egypt, Iran, and the UAE, the bloc now represents nearly half the world's population and a third of global GDP. Its members control key trade routes, energy resources, and agricultural land, making them a force in global supply chains. The group's diversity, energy producers, consumers, tech hubs, and financial centers, creates internal resilience and synergy. BRICS is building its own institutions like the new development bank, offering alternatives to Western-led organizations. Any US trade policy now faces a bloc that's not just big, but deeply interconnected and increasingly independent. Trump's new trade policy threatens tariffs on any country aligning with BRICS, forcing nations to choose sides. This breaks with decades of free trade and risks global retaliation, as targeted countries would likely respond with their own tariffs. The result? A global trade war that could disrupt supply chains, raise costs, and hurt consumers everywhere, including in the US. Past tariffs already hurt American farmers and manufacturers. This time the stakes are even higher, with a much larger bloc involved. Instead of isolating rivals, the US could find itself isolated as the rest of the world builds new economic alliances. The gamble, a fractured global economy, with America on the outside looking in. BRICS is no longer just a catchy acronym, it's a powerful, expanding alliance with a clear agenda. The addition of countries like Iran, Egypt, and the UAE gives the bloc new strategic depth and global influence. BRICS now connects continents and cultures, uniting former rivals under a shared vision for a multipolar world. The group's appeal is growing, with more countries seeking membership as an alternative to Western-dominated systems. BRICS is shaping its own narrative, offering the global South a platform for greater influence and self-determination. It's not just a coalition, it's a movement reshaping the rules of global engagement. The expanded BRICS bloc now represents nearly half the world's population, an unmatched consumer and labor force. Economically, it has already surpassed the G7 in purchasing power, with members ranging from China and India to Brazil and the UAE. The group's complementary strengths, energy, manufacturing, agriculture, finance, create a self-sustaining economic powerhouse. BRICS nations hold vast foreign reserves and sovereign wealth, giving them financial independence and global investment power. Institutions like the new development bank further cement their autonomy from Western financial systems. Ignoring BRICS means ignoring a force that's fundamentally reshaping the global economic order. The expanded BRICS commands a formidable geostrategic position, spanning major continents and overseeing critical choke points for global trade. With Egypt, BRICS has a stake in the Suez Canal. Iran influences the Strait of Hormuz. This gives the alliance leverage over commerce and energy. The bloc dominates natural resources. Russia, Brazil, and South Africa control minerals. Russia, Iran, and the UAE transform BRICS into an energy superpower, influencing prices and security. This resource wealth allows self-sufficiency. BRICS is reorienting global supply chains, building new infrastructure. By controlling resources and routes, BRICS reduces dependence on the West. This dominance gives them leverage in disputes. The expanded BRICS is a strategic alliance with a clear political vision to challenge the unipolar world order. Their objective is to reform global governance institutions unfairly dominated by Western interests. This ambition is backed by new institutions that serve as alternatives to the Western-led framework. A prominent example is the new development bank. Members are developing a shared payment system as an alternative to the SWIFT network. Diplomatically, the bloc coordinates its positions on major global issues. The expanded BRICS represents a strategic convergence united by dissatisfaction with the status quo. It is an ideological and political challenge to the Western-centric world. Donald Trump's proposed trade policy marks a dramatic escalation, shifting to a broad challenge against the emerging global order. The core is a stark ultimatum, a flat 10% tariff on exports to the US from countries aligning with BRICS. This geopolitical coercion forces nations into a binary choice. The penalty represents a radical departure from international trade norms. It pressures developing nations looking to BRICS for support to sever ties, creating a difficult dilemma. The vague notion of siding with BRICS creates uncertainty, a powerful political tool. This ultimatum is economic warfare against a rival bloc, aiming to isolate BRICS. However, this risky strategy could drive countries further into the arms of BRICS, accelerating the shift in global power. A sweeping tariff on BRICS nations would trigger swift, coordinated retaliation, not a simple tit-for-tat. The expanded BRICS bloc possesses a sophisticated arsenal of economic tools, designed to inflict maximum pressure on sensitive sectors of the American economy. BRICS nations could impose steep tariffs on American agricultural products and manufactured goods, targeting key political constituencies. Beyond tariffs, BRICS could leverage control over global supply chains and critical resources. China dominates rare earth minerals, vital for various industries. Energy-producing members could adjust oil production, creating market volatility. Furthermore, the bloc could accelerate its move away from the US dollar in trade and investment, uniting to build a parallel financial system, a retaliatory move with lasting consequences. Donald Trump's proposed trade war is a high-stakes gamble that amounts to a form of shock therapy for the entire global economic system. It risks triggering a cascading failure of global supply chains, potentially triggering a new wave of inflation, and misunderstands the modern, multipolar nature of global power. The US risks isolating itself, and could inadvertently catalyze the creation of the very world it seeks to prevent, pushing the world past a tipping point. For many nations across the global south, the BRICS bloc offers an alternative to Western development models. Western assistance often came with conditions perceived as infringements on national sovereignty. The BRICS model, in contrast, is built on non-interference, resonating with nations eager to chart their own course. This principle of sovereign equality is the cornerstone of the BRICS appeal. BRICS nations focus on economic and infrastructural merits, not political systems. This allows access to capital without adopting Western-style democracy. The new development bank is more flexible than its Western counterparts, prioritizing tangible results. This focus on practical outcomes is attractive to developing countries in a hurry to build their economies. The BRICS bloc delivers concrete, transformative projects, using infrastructure and investment as diplomacy. Across the global south, new railways, ports, power plants, and telecommunication networks are visible. China's Belt and Road Initiative is constructing railways connecting landlocked nations to ports. India leverages expertise in renewable energy, helping developing countries harness solar power and build digital infrastructure. BRICS members are indispensable partners, addressing critical needs from energy and food security to digital connectivity. While the West debates, BRICS builds, offering tangible progress. Escalating trade tensions and Donald Trump's approach are forcing a choice upon the global south. For decades, the default was with the West. However, the rise of BRICS has altered this map, offering a different model. Trump's policy may serve as the catalyst that compels many to formally pivot. This choice is about dignity, sovereignty, and a nation's place in the emerging world order. The BRICS bloc courts the global south, framing its expansion as a project to empower developing nations. This narrative is powerful to countries that have long felt marginalized. The practical benefits of aligning with BRICS are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. For a developing nation looking to secure its economic future, the BRICS ecosystem presents a compelling world of opportunity. Ultimately, Trump's trade war could be the final push that solidifies this global realignment. He is making the alternative offered by BRICS seem more stable and promising by comparison. The policy risks isolating the United States from the fastest-growing regions of the world. The BRICS proposition of partnership over patronage is proving to be a powerful force. The expanded BRICS bloc is exercising global leadership in energy security. The group's expansion has transformed it into a nearly self-contained energy ecosystem, with profound implications for global markets. The alliance includes major energy producers like Russia, the UAE, and Iran, holding massive oil and gas reserves. This capacity is matched by consumers China and India, creating a resilient energy loop. This allows BRICS nations to establish a stable energy market, insulated from global volatility, increasingly trading in local currencies, challenging the petrodollar system. This shields them from U.S. sanctions, diminishing U.S. leverage, and building a new set of rules for the global energy game. The BRICS nations are rapidly emerging as global leaders in digital public infrastructure, creating a new paradigm for societies. Spearheaded by China and India, this model focuses on state-backed digital platforms for identity, payments, and data exchange. India's India Stack provides digital identity and payment interfaces for over 1 billion citizens. China has built a vast digital ecosystem integrating e-commerce and social media. The BRICS bloc recognizes the strategic importance of this digital leadership. A key project is developing a BRICS-led cross-border payment system, an alternative to SWIFT. This leadership offers the BRICS bloc soft power and economic advantage, fostering a multipolar digital world. In an era of increasing climate volatility and geopolitical instability, food security has become a paramount concern for nations worldwide, and it is another area where the BRICS bloc demonstrates significant collective leadership. The group includes several of the world's most important agricultural powerhouses. Brazil is a global leader in the export of soybeans, beef, and coffee, while Russia has emerged as the world's largest wheat exporter. India is a top producer of rice, milk, and a wide array of spices and grains. Together, these nations form a veritable breadbasket for the world, possessing the capacity not only to feed their own vast populations, but also to play a crucial role in ensuring global food stability. This internal strength in food production creates a powerful synergy within the expanded BRICS. The bloc now includes major food importing nations like Egypt, which is historically one of the world's largest wheat importers, and China, a massive importer of soybeans and other feed grains. The ability to source these essential commodities from fellow BRICS members like Russia and Brazil creates a more secure and reliable food supply chain. This internal trade helps to stabilize prices and reduce the dependence of importing members on Western markets, which can be subject to sanctions, trade disputes, or logistical disruptions. This collaboration is a cornerstone of the bloc's strategy to enhance its collective resilience. The BRICS partnership extends beyond simply trading commodities. It involves the active sharing of agricultural technology and expertise to boost local production in member states. For instance, Brazil's advanced techniques in tropical agriculture and its development of resilient crop varieties are being shared with African nations like Ethiopia to help them improve their own food self-sufficiency. Similarly, India's expertise in water management and small-scale farming is being deployed to help other developing nations enhance their agricultural productivity. This collaborative approach aims to build long-term food security from the ground up, reducing import dependency and empowering nations to feed themselves more effectively. This collective approach to food security provides a stark contrast to a global system where food can sometimes be used as a political weapon. By creating an integrated food production and distribution network, the BRICS nations are building a system that prioritizes stability and cooperation over competition and coercion. This leadership in agriculture and food systems enhances the bloc's appeal to the global south, as many developing nations grapple with the challenges of feeding their growing populations. The ability of BRICS to offer both a reliable source of food imports and the tools to improve domestic production makes it an indispensable partner in the global fight against hunger. Led by China, the BRICS bloc has become the new workshop of the world, reshaping global manufacturing. Members like India and Brazil are expanding their industrial bases, making the bloc a dominant force in global production. This allows BRICS nations to control supply chains, design products, and build infrastructure for efficient trade routes, challenging the West's economic dominance. They are competing in innovation and building a world-class industrial ecosystem. This positions BRICS as a premier manufacturing powerhouse. A trade war poses a significant threat to the economic prosperity of the United States by risking the loss of valuable export markets. American businesses, from farmers in the Midwest to tech giants in Silicon Valley, have thrived by selling their goods and services globally. The expanded BRICS bloc, representing nearly half the world's population, is arguably the most important growth market. Imposing tariffs would lead to retaliatory measures, closing the door on American companies. Losing this economic footprint means losing a connection to the world's most dynamic economies, a self-inflicted wound. One of the most profound dangers of an aggressive trade war against the BRICS bloc is the potential for a steep decline in American geopolitical influence, particularly in the crucial regions of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. For decades, United States power has been built not just on its military might, but on its economic leadership, its diplomatic alliances, and the attractiveness of its development model. By threatening to penalize nations for partnering with BRICS, the United States risks being perceived not as a benevolent leader, but as a coercive hegemon. This approach alienates potential partners and pushes them closer to the BRICS alliance, which masterfully presents itself as a coalition based on mutual respect, sovereignty, and non-interference. America's influence in the global south is already weakening, and a trade war would accelerate this trend dramatically. While the United States often focuses on security and political ideology, the BRICS nations, led by China, are offering tangible solutions to the most pressing problems developing countries face: a lack of infrastructure, energy shortages, and the need for investment capital. When a country needs a new port, a modern railway, or a fifth-generation network, it is increasingly the BRICS that deliver. This practical, results-oriented approach builds deep and lasting influence. A United States policy that offers only threats and penalties, rather than a competitive alternative, effectively cedes the field to its rivals. The erosion of influence also has serious implications for America's ability to lead on critical global issues. Addressing challenges like climate change, pandemic prevention, and nuclear non-proliferation requires broad international cooperation. If the United States alienates nearly half the world's population and a significant portion of its economic power, its ability to build consensus and mobilize collective action is severely compromised. These global problems cannot be solved by a divided world. By forcing a new Cold War-style division, the United States would not only fail to isolate BRICS, but could find itself isolated when it needs global partners the most, diminishing its role from an indispensable nation to just one of two competing poles. Ultimately, influence is a currency built on trust and attraction. Trump's trade war gambit risks squandering this currency. It replaces diplomacy with ultimatums and partnership with punishment. This approach is likely to be counterproductive as nations historically resist being bullied into submission. The danger is that the world will simply move on, constructing new institutions, new trade routes, and new alliances that bypass the United States altogether. The result would be a more fragmented and less stable world where American influence has significantly frayed, leaving the United States less secure and less prosperous than before. The gravest danger within Trump's proposed trade war is the risk of strategic isolation. The policy is an unforced error, born from a misreading of the 21st century global landscape. A new star system, the BRICS, has formed, developing its own powerful gravitational pull. The United States may be shocked to find how many choose the alternative. BRICS is offering a positive, forward-looking vision for global development, speaking the language of infrastructure investment. A United States policy centered on tariffs sounds defensive by comparison. The trade war could also alienate traditional U.S. allies. Ultimately, Trump's threats are giving rise to the very rival he seeks to contain. External pressure is the single most powerful catalyst for BRICS unity and expansion. The policy intended to divide and conquer could instead unite and empower. The ultimate danger is that the United States starts a crisis it cannot control. A critical pillar of the BRICS bloc's growing influence is its immense financial power, capable of reshaping global capital flows. The member nations have collectively amassed a colossal fortress of foreign exchange reserves, estimated to be well over $5 trillion US. This massive accumulation of capital means that the BRICS nations are now among the world's largest creditors. This financial strength is further amplified by the enormous sovereign wealth funds controlled by several key members. This financial independence is a core component of the bloc's resilience. The BRICS nations now possess the resources to weather economic storms on their own terms. The growing financial clout of the BRICS is being used proactively to build a new economic reality. This ability to self-finance their own rise marks a definitive shift in global economic power. The BRICS are building a new set of international financial institutions, like the New Development Bank, NDB, in Shanghai. As an alternative to the World Bank, the NDB funds infrastructure and development projects across member countries. The NDB offers loans without the stringent conditions of the IMF and World Bank. Lending in local currencies helps nations avoid US dollar-denominated debt risks. The BRICS Contingent Reserve Arrangement, CRA, provides a financial safety net with a $100 billion capital pool. Together, the NDB and CRA form a self-sufficient financial architecture, offering an alternative to the existing global bodies. A central plank of the BRICS strategy is the systematic move away from the US dollar. For decades, the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency has granted the United States an exorbitant privilege. The BRICS nations view this over-reliance on the dollar as a critical vulnerability. BRICS members are increasingly settling bilateral trade in their own local currencies, bypassing the dollar. The ultimate goal is the potential creation of a new BRICS reserve currency, or at least a shared payment system. This system would function as an alternative to SWIFT. By building their own financial plumbing, the BRICS nations could make themselves immune to financial sanctions. The more the United States uses its currency as a tool of coercion, the greater the incentive for BRICS to accelerate their search for alternatives. The BRICS nations are challenging the existing rules of global governance. A central demand is the reform of institutions like the UN, IMF, and World Bank. They argue that leadership and voting structures are outdated and don't reflect today's economic realities. At the UN, the BRICS advocate for expanding the Security Council. Similarly, they're demanding an overhaul of voting rights within the IMF and World Bank. This call for reform challenges the legitimacy of current global rules. The West must accommodate these powers or risk the BRICS forging their own path. While the BRICS bloc continues to push for reform from within the existing system, it is not waiting for permission to begin shaping a new world order. Recognizing that the path to reform can be slow and fraught with resistance, the alliance is proactively creating new forums, legal frameworks, and governance structures that operate entirely outside the Western-dominated sphere. This strategy is not just about creating economic alternatives, it is about writing a new set of rules for international cooperation, rules that are designed by and for the nations of the Global South. This represents a quiet but profound revolution in global governance, as new centers of power begin to set their own standards and build their own consensus. This is evident in the proliferation of BRICS-led forums and working groups that cover a vast array of policy areas, from counterterrorism and cybersecurity to space exploration and public health. These meetings create platforms for member states to coordinate their policies and develop common positions, independent of Western input. For example, the BRICS are developing their own standards for digital economies and artificial intelligence, ensuring that the future of technology is not dictated solely by Silicon Valley and Washington. They are also establishing new arbitration centers to settle trade disputes among themselves, creating a legal infrastructure that bypasses traditional Western-based courts and institutions. The gradual shift away from rules written by Washington is perhaps one of the most significant long-term consequences of the rise of BRICS. For generations, the United States has been the primary author of the rules of global commerce, finance, and international law. The US dollar was the default currency, English was the language of business, and American-led institutions set the global agenda. The BRICS-led initiatives are systematically chipping away at this foundation. By promoting the use of local currencies, building alternative payment systems, and creating their own institutions, they are demonstrating that there is more than one way to organize the world, a concept that is gaining traction across the Global South. An aggressive trade war from the United States would only accelerate this process of rulemaking divergence. Faced with punitive tariffs and political pressure, the BRICS and their partners would have an even greater incentive to finalize their own trade rules, establish their own technical standards, and solidify their own legal frameworks. This could lead to a world that is increasingly bifurcated, with one set of rules for the Western Bloc and another for the BRICS-aligned world. This is the ultimate shift in global rules, not just a change in who sits at the table, but the creation of entirely new tables where the West is not even invited. Donald Trump's economic confrontation could ironically unite America's rivals, providing the BRICS bloc with a common threat. Historically, external pressure forges solidarity, compelling actors to focus on shared challenges. US policy could bind nations, even those with disputes, into a cohesive front. Faced with economic threats, BRICS cooperation skyrockets. This accelerates initiatives and forces faster, purposeful action. Trump's policies risk creating a broad coalition of the targeted, potentially isolating the US instead of weakening rivals. Resisting U.S. pressure builds trust within BRICS, reinforcing their partnership and demonstrating collective power. Trump's trade war could turn BRICS into a magnet for nations alienated by American policy. Influential countries like Turkey, Argentina, and Saudi Arabia have expressed interest in joining. A new trade war would transform this interest into a rush for the door. Countries targeted by U.S. sanctions see BRICS as a safe harbor, offering diversification and access to new markets. The aggressive American stance acts as the BRICS' most effective recruitment tool. The world needs an alternative to a volatile U.S.-led system. The trade war fuels BRICS' growth, hastening the arrival of a multipolar world. The irony of a renewed trade war is that it may accelerate the decline of American dominance. Intended as a show of U.S. economic might, it acts as an unintended catalyst, empowering the BRICS bloc. Punitive tariffs have become a rallying cry, pushing member states to deepen cooperation and fast-track a parallel global system. The world is no longer dependent on a single engine of growth. By choosing confrontation, the U.S. risks pushing the world to build a future without its leadership. It's a profound miscalculation, helping to construct the very world it was meant to prevent. We are witnessing the end of an era. The post-Cold War period is drawing to a close. The rise of the BRICS bloc is the clearest manifestation of a historic transition toward a multipolar world. This is about the fundamental redrawing of the global map of power. The emerging world will be one defined by multiple systems operating in parallel. Nations will navigate a more complex world between these competing spheres of influence. This new balance of power is not necessarily a negative outcome. A multipolar world could be a more democratic one. Economic power is shifting, and the balance of global influence is being recalibrated. The unipolar moment has passed, and the era of a multipolar world has truly begun. The central challenge is how to navigate it wisely and peacefully.